Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Silent Hill Origins. The first Western-made Silent Hill game was made for PSP and is a prequel to Silent Hill 1. Is it worth diving back in, or should these have been kept in the dark? Let's find out. Origins marks a turning point in the series where Team Silent was disbanded and Konami would grab random Western devs to pilot the series from now on. This team made both Origins and Shattered Memories, and Origins plays it a bit close to the chest in terms of attempting to emulate the original game. You play as Travis, a trucker passing through Silent Hill who stops to try and save Alyssa from a burning house, unaware of the events that'll set into motion. Before long, he's thrown into a very familiar plot for those who've played 1 and 3, and has to explore nightmare versions of both familiar and unfamiliar Silent Hill locations in an attempt to both save Alyssa and get out of the town. Origins attempts to merge the cult story from Silent Hill 1 with a more personal demon story from 2, and certainly feels like it's biting off a little more than it can chew there. Travis is likable enough, but his personal plot doesn't really mesh well with the Silent Hill 1 cult stuff in any meaningful way, making these two threads feel fairly independent of each other. Story aside, the game is very similar to previous titles, with the gameplay split up between exploring the town trying to figure out where to go next, and the smaller dungeon areas you need to beat in order to pop back out to the town and head to your next location. There are some significant changes here though, the main one being the ability to swap between Nightmare and regular world on a whim. Rather than running through an area on normal first before it transitions to Nightmare Land, this time Travis can use various mirrors scattering throughout each area to freely switch. Both areas have different pathways, either open or closed, so learning the layout of both zones becomes necessary to proceed. Another big change is the combat, where Travis is more capable as that he can attack quickly and without a weapon, and somehow less capable given that every weapon in the game now degrades and breaks. This leads to you scavenging for equipment fairly often, which is certainly a bit survival horror-esque, but with the enemies being pretty tanky, you may have to throw a couple toasters at them before they die. Luckily, stealth is an option, as enemies are easier to evade, particularly with your light off, encouraging a more pacifist style of play. In between combat and exploration, you'll be solving a handful of typical Silent Hill puzzles, which usually involve some context awareness as well as finding items to put in various key areas. And honestly, not much more to say about Silent Hill Origins. As mentioned, it plays the whole thing pretty close to the chest, and its shorter length makes it a much more bite-sized novella when compared to the other games in the franchise. So what did I like about Silent Hill Origins? Well, being able to switch between normal and Nightmare World at your choosing is a really interesting mechanic, and one that allows for some more creative puzzle solving and exploration. Additionally, I actually thought this game's puzzles were solid, especially for a Silent Hill game. There's no difficulty setting, but they had a decent range of brain teasing to basic, never killing the pace but still keeping me engaged. And lastly, this game definitely feels more like a Team Silent game than any of its Western successors, with some great enemy design, more open areas and city exploration, and some genuinely great set pieces and zones. When it comes to the bad, does anybody like weapon degradation in video games? Like in any game? Regardless, it's a pretty bad fit here, as you'll be constantly swapping weapons and walking around with an inventory full of junk. Additionally, the attempt to do the cult stuff with Travis's personal nightmare doesn't really gel well together, paired with some fairly clunky writing and attempts to flesh out Silent Hill 1 characters like Lisa falling pretty flat. Additionally, while I like the light-dark world swap, it does make some of the larger areas like the sanitarium feel way too big, as you're basically dealing with 2 major maps at once, causing the whole thing to feel more overwhelming than scary. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother, and I think Silent Hill Origins is definitely a maybe consider. Now, I've never actually played Origins before this, and despite some odd design decisions, I was very engaged throughout. The light and dark world swapping leads to some good puzzles, and the game has strong Silent Hill atmosphere, particularly in its enemy and area design. While it's certainly not among the best in the series, if you're looking for a short and spooky Silent Hill adventure that doesn't compromise the original games, Origins should be right up your alley. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Silent Hill Origins, if you have, please let me know what you think about it in the comments. I was pleasantly surprised with this one, but I do want to know what you think, and regardless, go out there and give it a look.